gamification to improve your driving. I'm Tonya Hall for ZDNet and Tech Republic, and joining me is Jonathan Matus. He is the co-founder and CEO of Zendrive. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, Tonya. How are you?
What does Zendrive do, and what motivated you to start the company?
Sure. Zendrive is the world's largest driver analytics platform. We collect massive amounts of data with mobile phones. We analyze that data, and we turn it into insights that make roads safer. The reason why we're doing this is the mission for the company, which is to make roads safe using data and analytics. And prior to working on Zendrive, I worked at both Google on the Android team and Facebook on the mobile platform, and was involved with very early days of smartphones. I helped bring 1 billion handsets to the hands of Android users, and then more than 1 billion mobile applications to the hand of Facebook users, and felt somewhat responsible for the social and financial and health implications of distracted phone use, which, as I'm sure some of your audience knows, is a big problem these days on the roads. So decided to start a company and tackle that head on. Collected some of the smartest people I work with at Google and at Facebook, and here we are 5 years later.
Phones don't directly measure speed. They measure the device's linear and angular acceleration. The data is subject to lots of noise, like bouncing around, phone use, turns, etc. How do you measure driver behavior with just a smartphone?
That's a great question, and that's the first thing that we were set to prove to ourselves and to our angel investors when we built the company. So the problem, as you mentioned, is quite complex. You have the phone with all these degrees of freedom, and you have a person sitting in a vehicle and moving around, and sometimes the phone is in the hand, so moving around. And then you have the vehicle itself that's maneuvering in space. It can be, X, Y, but also Z, going up and down. It turns out that there's a lot that you can do with math, and that there's a lot more that you can do when you have data from several sensors at the same time. So in Geekland, we call this sensor fusion, which essentially means you take several streams of data, say GPS, accelerometer, gyroscope, and using pretty sophisticated math, you start from the one truism that you know, which is all of them exist in the same location in the same time. And given that, you can start and reconstruct and find out, for instance, that when a GPS goes, dot, 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 jumps another kilometer for a few dots and then comes back, we're talking about an anomaly because you have accelerometer and gyroscope data that allows you to correct for that. So basically using different sensor streams to smoothen out noise from other streams that are running in parallel. So that's one thing that we do. The second thing that we do, or the second thing that we benefit from, is that mobile smartphones have gone so much better over the last few years. So, early days of the Android platform, really, it was quite difficult to understand without huge margin of error what is happening around you. But for the past 5 years, both the type and quality of sensors, but also the platforms themselves, iOS and Android, and what the developer ecosystems around them are able to do, has developed quite a bit. And so we benefit from this kind of tide of quality on both the hardware and the software side. Some much smarter people than I have been calling the smartphones in our back pocket supercomputers. And indeed, what you can do now with those smartphones and with those sensors is compared to what a few years ago a Cray computer could do. So it's pretty cool.
Weather, road types, traffic, fragile cargo, vehicle type, and other external factors can affect how someone drives. How do you discern whether a driving improvement is real or as a result of some unrelated factor? I mean, when comparing patterns, how do you know you have apples to apples comparison?
Sure. So another way to ask this question is when you have a hard brake, how do you know if it was justified or not, right? Maybe the person was slamming the brake to save a kid crossing the road, and that was a justified, a good thing to do as a safe driver. The thing is that when you are analyzing driving behavior over long periods of time, statistics don't lie. They do lie very, very much when you look at very, very small frequency or very, very small periods of time. But if you're comparing patterns over days and weeks and several hundreds of miles, you get very, very statistically significant prediction of crashes. And what we've done at Zendrive is we've analyzed about 150 billion miles, which is, just to give you some context, is about 10 times more data than Progressive insurance collected over 20 years. So we collected the data in 2 years, really, really rapid data growth. And in that data set, we've seen a lot of crashes. And we basically built artificial intelligence algorithm, set of algorithms to be accurate actually, that are looking for these crash events. And once we identify a crash event, we compare that to the Zendrive safety score and try to see whether a different permutation of that Zendrive score can better predict that crash. We do that repeatedly against historical data that we keep on AWS, running it again and again and again, and create new versions of our predictive algorithm that become what we call in hand-wavy terms, tighter and tighter and tighter. And so, now we've been doing it for about 5 years, and and the power of the prediction is quite significant. There was a third-party study by some experts in the risk space, people that are helping insurance company quantify and understand exactly these type of questions. They're called Milliman. And so we worked with them, our data science team geeked out with them, analyzed a bunch of billions of miles, and they found that the model that we built using these modern machine learning techniques are about 6 times stronger, more predictive than the best models that existed to date in the insurance world. And that's probably a kind of a combination of using larger data sets, more fresh data, but also just new machine learning techniques that the traditional actuary insurance models just didn't have access to when they started doing this 30 and 40 years ago.
What steps do you take to safeguard individuals' privacy? I mean, have you ever been asked by law enforcement to turn over any type of records or anything like that?
We haven't, but of course, if someone asks us, we will comply with the law. However, there's a really good architecture that we've built exactly for the purpose of protecting privacy for users. First of all of the data that we collect is anonymized and aggregate. So if I have, the Zendrive technology running on my phone, Zendrive servers never know that this is Jonathan that's driving. They know that there is a person that's driving and is, seeing these patterns. And so when we partner with a company, we provide them scores and analytics, but we never actually understand which person it is that we're scoring. So that's one aspect. The second aspect is that a lot of our technology can run at the endpoint on the SDK itself. SDK is software development kit, meaning a component that runs inside a third-party application. And so you can actually get 90% of the value of what we provide without sending anything to any server. So it exists in a localized bubble, if you wanna call it so, and it does its thing, analyzes the driver behavior, and say in case of a crash, it can then give a callback to the host application and say, we detected a crash. Would you like to do something about it? And then the host application can do something like call a call center or vibrate and ask the driver whether they need any help, things of that sort. And so we are a kind of a technology component that is that doesn't receive any access to sensitive PII information, and generally most of the computation is happening at the endpoint itself.
Jonathan Matus, co-founder and CEO of Zendrive, keeping those distracted neighbors off the road. If somebody wants to connect with you, how can they go about doing that?
One way is to follow me on Twitter, so matusj@twitter.com. Another is to check out zendrive.com. We have a blog over there where I often post, and we also have an open mailing list that they can shoot us notes or send comments. And we're also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and recently Instagram. So if you want to check out the way we party here at Zendrive, which we do every Friday religiously, you can check out Zendrive on Instagram, and you can learn more about our Funky Friday tradition.
Love it. I'll be there. And, and if you guys want to find more of my interviews, you can do that right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or maybe find me by going to tonyahall.net. I've got links to all my social sites. Thanks for watching.